Guerrilla Insight, Episode 2, Memos, Fuzzy Math, Fuzzy Logic, Corrupt Empire. Memos, 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 memos. That's been the theme all week, it seems like. It seems like this entire week, all we've been hearing about is these memos, the release of the memos, the release of the memos, the build-up, the crescendo, the noise, the unrestrained cries of a people that want justice, a people that want vindication, people that want to be reminded that the system still works, and irrespective of power, position, whether you are a prince or a pauper, the law applies to you. That's all that Americans want. That's all that they've ever needed. I've said that for quite some time. And so the memos were released, it seems, at some point in some regard. A website, a well-known website and media group out in the alternative media released it. CJ got it over to my desk. I looked at it and dissected as best as I could the short amount of time that I've looked at it. And I do admit there needs to be a little further, closer examination, but there is nothing incriminating that is jumping up at the gorilla's eyes. There's nothing that stands out in front of me and my mind. There's no names. There's nothing. There's redactions. There's only techniques on how they collect information. There's mentions of how and why and the mechanisms of unmasking. But that's it. There's nothing else to it. Nothing else about it. Just these mechanisms. These are mechanisms, folks, that we already know. These are modalities that we are already familiar with. Policies that are all too familiar to those who do not have their head in the sand, those who do not have their heads firmly shoved up into their sphincters. It doesn't tell us anything yet. Is there more to these memos? Possibly. Folks, the time, you have to understand what is occurring. The time, we don't have a lot of time. We are racing against the death of the dollar. Dollar and its use as a world reserve currency is something that is being tossed onto the wayside. And I don't care where the dollar index is. I do not care if it's in the 80s. I do not care if it's in the 90s, because these numbers are fictitious in so many ways. They are manipulated and simply not real. They're simply not real. But here's the thing that is real. Here's the real issues here that we are facing as a country. Paul Kirk Roberts, who I respect very deeply, very brilliant man, to say none the least, had an interesting article that he put out. NSA, it's a blackmail agency. Now, most of us Americans, most of you are concerned about the NSA snooping. Some of you have got around to getting around it using the silverback, using the gold USB, using a Tor browser, using whatever means you got, even a private VPN, whatever means is at your disposal. You've done it because you care about your data, you care about your information. And we all know, because of gentlemen like William Benny, who is an NSA whistleblower, we understand how the data dragnets work. They're literally just siphoning up all the data in the world, and the metadata as well. And they're trying to then, if a crime is committed or something of national security is of importance, they would simply go back to that data and look at it. They'd simply go back and take a peek at it and dissect it and try to figure it all out. And that's how it is. But here's one thing about American power. You see, when you're in the den of thieves, that is Washington, D.C., when you're in the district of criminals, that is Washington, you don't really care about Joe Blow. What you care about is other powerful individuals within your circle and without. You are concerned about those bureaucrats that are just like you. They're competing for the limited resources of the plebeian serfs that the American public has been transformed into. That's what you're competing for. You are competing for that. They are competing for that, excuse me. They're worried about what a captain of industry is doing. They're worried about other powerful people. Why? Because when you have a system like this that we have set up, and folks, if you want to blame somebody, all we need to do is just look ourselves in the mirror. That's all we need to do. If you're looking to blame somebody, because the blame belongs to us. When you have a corrupt system such as ours, it is only a matter of time that these politicians will use these mechanisms against each other. Their main drive is to hold on to power, number one. And number two, the setup of the NSA and its data collection ensures that those that are outside the system, those that are outside of, quote unquote, the deep state, the establishment, can never get in. This ensures that you have total and complete blackmail in a very unplausible, asymmetric way. Guaranteed, you are able to quickly find out the skeletons in the closet of somebody who's an outsider. So the main focus, the main function, as Dr. Roberts says, excuse me, is to collect the dirt on members of the House of Senate, staff, principal contributors, and federal judges. The blackmail mechanism was put into gear the minute the news reported that the House Intelligence Committee had assembled proof that the FBI, DOJ, DNC created Russiagate as a conspiracy to unseat President Trump. Members of Congress with nothing to hide demanded the evidence to be released to the public. Of course, it was to be expected that the release of the facts would be denounced by the Democrats, but Republicans such as Representative Mike Conway, himself a member of the committee, joined in the effort to protect the Democrats and the corrupt FBI and the DOJ from exposure, hiding behind national security concerns. Conway opposes revealing the classified information that'd be real dangerous, he says. As informed people know, 95% of the information that is classified is for the purpose that has nothing to do with national security. The House Intelligence Committee memo has no information in it related to any security except that of Comey, Brennan, Clapper, Hillary, Obama, Mueller, Rosenstein, Peter Strzok, and Lisa the Horseface Page, the DNC, and the mainstream media. Logical assumption is that every member of Congress opposed to informing the American public of the Russiagate conspiracy to unseat the President of the United States is being blackmailed by the security agencies who planned, organized, and implemented the conspiracy against the President of the United States and the American democracy. All this occurs because you have American insolence, a carelessness, which is the great enabler of the ability of the security state and the media whores that serve them. It is the carelessness of the American public, the laissez-faire attitude that somebody else is looking out for your own best interest. All I'm concerned about is paying the bills day to day, month to month. Got to keep the lights on, keep food on the table. I don't have time for politics. And that is exactly why it's exactly what they want. They don't want those who are enterprising mavericks. They don't want people who take destiny into their own hands. They want those where households where mommy and daddy have to work 1 and 2 jobs, maybe even 3 jobs to support a household is the perfect household, because this way nobody pays attention. Nobody has the energy to pay attention. You see, America's a jewel, a city on a hill, a light to the world. It was. And because we went along with these corrupt politicians and their idealistic ideas, these politicians who hide their vehement, venomous avarice towards you, they hide it under a mask of altruism. You bought into their lie thinking that you'd have to work extra. You bought into their lie that we needed a central bank. You bought it into the lie that the currency that you have needs to be debased. You bought into the lie that it does not need to be backed by anything. You bought into the lie that not only you, but your spouse as well has to work. You bought into the lie that it's completely normal to drop off your child at a daycare center 8 hours a day. You bought into the lie that public education has your child's best interests in mind. You bought into the lie that we're a service-based economy. You bought into the lie that Wall Street is out there looking for your best interest and that it is not about performance, but it's all about you. You bought into that lie. You bought into that lie. And now the lie has come to its festering end. We are months, maybe years away from this thing playing out. How it plays out is not dependent upon a politician, and we need to stop looking at politicians because these are the scumbags who put us in the predicament that we are in. You must only look to yourselves. There is an awakening that is going on in this country. My fear is that the awakening is sitting there looking for someone to lead it. Folks, you need to lead it. This is your country. It does not belong to the Democrats or the Republicans. It does not belong to the corporations or the multinationals or the bankers. It belongs to you. This is a country that relies upon fuzzy math, folks. It was divulged today that the U.S. housing market, which has been surviving for so long on fictitious numbers that are used to create various bond instruments that are chopped up and sold throughout the world as mortgage-backed securities, vital mortgage-backed securities that keep the fictitious U.S. bond market alive. It was found out that these numbers are actually kept. These fake housing prices are maintained not by real estate estimators or assessors. It's not kept by those who do these things, but it is kept by those Wall Street banks who utilize Google Maps and Google Earth and outcall desks in faraway lands like in India and other parts of Southeast Asia, where a bunch of men who have no idea what the real estate market is in this country, who have no idea, they don't know what Wall Street is from Main Street, they have no clue. And they're the ones sitting in a far-off computer using Google Maps, guesstimating fictitious house prices to keep it artificially high when the mortgage applications are the lowest they've been since 1965, when 89% of Manhattan, there's foreclosures are up 89% in Manhattan, where Billionaires Row right there in Fifth Avenue is also facing foreclosures, where the Hamptons house prices are down 20 to 30%, where house prices in many luxury areas are down 20 to 30%, where Greenwich, Connecticut is imploding. States are going bankrupt. Municipalities are going belly up. And you have a corrupt criminal Wall Street element and the bankers and the central bank that supports them ensuring fictitious bond prices in a fictitious bond market that is severing and fisturing. Oh, you better believe it, the rats have left the ship. You better believe that the rats are gone. You better believe that the ones that will be holding the bag is you. Is you. So we sit here, folks, looking at memos, waiting for the latest QAnon. Whatever is really happening in the background, we have no freaking clue. Either this is the greatest pacification of resistance the world has ever seen. Again, tricking us to think that somebody else is taking care of our mess. Somebody else is wiping our butts. Or it is actually happening. And folks, I've said this before, and I will say this again. Midterm 2018, if nothing changes, if Hillary's walking around free, if John McCain decides to grow another tumor and is walking around free or on a crutch or on a wheelchair, if Bill Clinton is still giving speeches, if Paul Ryan is walking around scot-free, if a James Comey or any one of these charlatans in the Freaky Boys International, aka the FBI, walks around free, then you know nothing has changed. And you probably have another 3 years, maybe 4 years before the entire ship comes to rest, smacking it in pieces. It's revealed that the Pentagon unveiled a new strategy, folks. We know about the fuzzy math of Wall Street. We know about the fuzzy logic in American politics. Now we're going to talk about the corrupt empire. The long-awaited national defense strategy, a vision of U.S. imperialism, is insane. It's insane. That Pentagon document states that great power competition, not terrorism, is now the primary focus of U.S. national security. Much of the document's language echoed terms used in the national security document unveiled last month in a fascistic speech, even delivered by many politicians. Some of the proponents of this, like General Mattis, which I don't know if he's going along with it because he decided to read the latest book of Socrates all over again, says that the growing threat from revisionist powers as different as China and Russia, nations that seek to create a world consistent with their authoritarian models. They don't have authoritarian models. The only authoritarian models is the neocon, neolib, globalist, fascistic New World Order that has been hoisted upon us. That is the only tyranny that exists. The Anglo-American Atlanticist tyranny is the only remaining tyranny. This is the Fourth Reich, folks. This is the Fourth Reich, and this is the only thing that exists on this planet. The defense strategy goes on to accuse China of seeking an Indo-Pacific regional hegemony in the near term and the displacement of the United States to achieve global preeminence in the future. Folks, let me tell you that China has no desire to be a global hegemon. They desire to control the South China Seas for one thing and one thing only. And if you've been following me for quite a number of years, you understand the word is the Straits of Malacca. The Straits of Malacca is where the majority of Chinese energy shipments are come through. Anything happens to that strait, the Chinese energy, the Chinese economy dies. They need to guarantee safe passage against what? American Navy imperialism. American Navy shenanigans. Deep state tricks. This happens, folks, because this is a dying empire. An empire that no longer has bright ideas. An empire that doesn't have a way to compete economically. Thus, it tries to compete with an obsolete military, with an obsolete worldview, pushed by obsolete leaders, with an obsolete paradigm and an obsolete mindset. who think that their ideas, their obsolete ideas, are some sort of paragons of virtue, that it somehow benefits the state. All it does is bankrupt, rob, and destroy us. All it does, it puts us into a further systemic calamity, a further systemic calamity. Memos, memos, memos. And yet, the systemic reality, the hard economic numbers, the facts, the grand chessboard, the entire paradigm shift still remains a reality. Memos, memos, memos.